I finally got my dream house. Yeah, I know it's a little rough, but a little paint and you'll never recognize the place. And hey, a little card table over in the corner and a hot plate on it, and the kitchen's finished. Okay, I thought that was funny, but the missus, she sure did not see the humor in that. This was obviously not her dream house after she looked at it. But it's mine. Okay, and here's the thing. We've all got different dreams, so we're all going to have a different dream house. What we're going to talk about today is how to make yours happen, and just things to know in general. And for this one, okay, yeah, this is my dream house. I've always talked about having that little place out in the country, a little piece of land. I've talked about it in videos in the past. That's my dream. That's what we got here. All right, and this is a little bit more important to me too, because this is family land. I'm actually buying this house from my father at fair market value. But because of all the work it needs, even at fair market value, I can pay cash for this. I can stay debt-free, and I can get that little place out in the country I always wanted. And I talked a lot in the past, a lot of different videos about skills. Well, I've got a few, not a lot, but because I do have a few skills, I'm going to be able to turn this into my dream home and the Mrs.'s dream home. Again, I can see what this is going to be. All right, so this works for me, but this probably wouldn't work for a lot of you. All right, here's the big thing though. Whatever our dream home is, first of all, we've got to decide exactly what that is. This is goals in life, dream home, anything. We got to figure out the details. All right, so what we've got to know is we've got to know where we're at, where we want to be, and then all we've got to do is figure out how to get there, and that's actually the easy part, figuring out how to get there. It's just most of us never stop to figure out exactly where we want to be. All right, so we're going to get up some measurements in here. Lay this out. We're going to go see a friend of mine, really good friend, who's also a builder and contractor. And then he's going to draw up some plans for us. We're going to discuss some things with him, but him being a professional contractor, builder. We're going to figure out where we're at. When he gets done with the plans, we'll know where we want to be. And then we're going to come back and we're going to figure out how to get there. Folks, this is my friend Stephen.
Hello.
And he is a builder. Okay, so I'm not going into this completely blind, stumbling through the dark. I've got him to help lead the way, keep me from messing up too much. Okay, and I thought it would be really interesting to have a little conversation with Stephen, because Stephen, being a professional builder, contractor, he knows the pitfalls people run into when it comes to building their dream house. He knows the challenges and so forth. Again, that's his business. Okay, so Stephen, let's start with price. That's the big one right there for everybody. I mean, if we all had unlimited funds, it wouldn't be an issue. We'd all have our McMansion out wherever. And so
we were talking off camera before Dom got everything set up, and people get these numbers in their head. Their friend, another builder, whatever, they get this average cost of square footage, $150 a square foot, $200 a square foot, whatever it might be. Obviously, it's higher up north if you're up north. But they come about this square footage and they think, I'm gonna build a 2,000 square foot house, and let's just say, for the sake of saying, it's $2 a square foot, and it's gonna be $400,000. Well, they don't factor in the garage, this big three car garage that they want, with a bonus room above it, with a wraparound porch, and then part of that screened in, composite decking, fancy columns, wood ceilings on that porch, that type of thing. So they're not accounting for that part of the build. They're only accounting for the finished square footage.
Right. They're not counting all the extras.
Yeah, they're only thinking about the bedrooms, the living room, the flooring on the interior of the house, and not the garage. So you know you have to factor all those items into something if you're going to have a garage. And most people, not everybody, but most people building a new house are going to have a garage, at least a 2-car garage minimum. I rarely draw anything or build anything that somebody else drew that doesn't have a 2-car garage on it.
And we're talking two different types of people here, are two different classes as far as finance.
But most of the people that I build for are, you know, small business owners that are wealthy or somewhat wealthy, depending on what you consider wealthy.
Middle class.
You know, upper middle class for the most part. They're corporate wealthy, whatever.
Keep in mind, middle class used to be your doctors and lawyers. We call the working class now middle class, just to make everybody feel better, but it's not as working class.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so the people that are coming to see you can afford to have a custom home built.
Right. Now, I built a house for a cousin of mine that's substantially older than me, over in a little town called Whitmire, and she's in her 70s and divorced, been divorced for 10 years, and we tore down that old farmhouse that belonged to her grandparents, actually, and rebuilt a little 3-bedroom, 2-bath, little country style house that I designed, and she didn't want a garage, didn't need a garage, you know, but that's rare that I build something with a garage. I got one going right now that I designed that I had built originally as a pole barn with a detached shop. We kind of used the same floor plan and added the shop to one building, and over time, after doing several pole barns, I realized that pole barns aren't cheap like everybody thinks they are. You know, people think that because I'm building a pole barn, it's cheap. If you're going to build a shop as a pole barn, it's cheap square footage. But once you try to finish it out and frame in between your posts and all that kind of stuff, you're right back to square one where you would have been for a conventional stick framed house.
Right.
So with that being said, this one I got going now, we're just doing stick frame, elevated slab, conventional framing, same exact layout as the other house, as a pole barn house, except it has an attached shop to it.
And this is where it all gets interesting too. Okay, you've got Stephen's normal clientele, upper middle class people that can afford to have a custom house built, a brand new home, however they want it. And then you've got people like myself that, well, in terms of prices, I suspect somebody like myself going to Stephen for a quote would be in sticker shop, just because I'm thinking of what houses costed 30 years ago. And the price of houses fluctuate greatly. Stephen was mentioning earlier about the price of lumber. It's come down now, so that's helped a lot on framing.
Yeah.
But it does vary a lot.
There's dips just like the stock market, but overall it goes up. Gold, same thing. I mean, you know, you hit a high and then get a dip, and then it goes back. But overall, over time, it's going up, just like the stock market. And we were just discussing before camera was set up that I've got I call him my mentor. He's about 86 years old now. His name's Larry Loftus. And he told me years ago, I mean, the first house he ever built, probably back in the 60s maybe, for $18,000. It probably wasn't a huge house. I'm guessing it was maybe under 2,000 square foot. Brick house for $18,000, I think he said it was. Yeah. Turnkey.
There are decks now that cost $18,000.
Oh, I just did a deck renovation the other day. We went in at about a $30,000 cost. Once we got going, we realized it was supposed to be a renovation job and leave the existing framing. When we got started on it, framing had a sag in it. It was starting to rot out. There was other issues, so we ended up tearing it all down. In the end, the guy spent $50,000
on a deck.
On a deck.
Okay. For me, that just didn't even imagine.
This just wasn't your average deck. It was a Ducks back product that waterproofed the under. He was not on a base. It's not a basement, but it's got a high crawl space on the back side of the house. It's got a pool out there, outdoor kitchen underneath the deck. So we're trying to waterproof all that. So it's expensive decking, that kind of stuff. But in general, I mean, I think the thing was 16 by 40 with the staircase and aluminum handrails and the whole 9 yards. Ended up 50 grand.
Okay, now that's for that individual's home. That was his dream house. He could afford to have the deck and house he wanted.
Yeah, and he's lived in this house for quite some time. I built the outdoor kitchen for him years ago, and somebody else built the house. He'd been in it for a while, called me in years ago. We built the outdoor kitchen underneath it. He kind of just rigged up some metal roofing up under the deck to waterproof it, and that lasted for a while, but he had leaks and other issues and stuff, and then it got it was just a treated deck, so without really good maintenance and all that, over time it started to fall apart and need to be torn down, or like I said, the plan was to reface it. Well, the further we got into it, we realized, and I had to make the call and tell him, so man, I had to tell him, I said, unfortunately, it's not going to go the way we thought it was.
Okay, and in terms of a remodel, this is something I think everybody really needs to understand. How often do you get into deep on a project on a remodel, and all of a sudden you ran into some serious structural
termite damage, this stuff all the time? I mean, you can go in and you can project numbers and think you're dealing with one thing, and then in the end it turn around. I've got another one, for example, that was a phase 1, 2, and 3. And phase 1 was a master suite addition with a sitting room, big walk-in closet, master bedroom, and master bath. And phase 2 of the project was to take out a center wall of this what had been a little fishing shack out on Lake Greenwood. So phase 2 was to put a beam in and open up these 2 rooms and then redo the kitchen. Phase 3 was a garage with some additional living space. Well, we were started on the phase 1, working on the addition, which is straightforward. It's all brand new stuff. Other than tying into the existing structure, which can get complicated, especially if stuff's out of square, that kind of thing. You have to deal with that. Anyway, so I get a phone call in fall before last, and the client's son-in-law had stepped through the floor in the original fishing shack. And so I said, well, don't worry about it. We'll figure it out when we get started on phase 2. Well, when we got started on phase 2, we started tearing things apart and realized that the floor system and framing in general was underframed, overspanned, was eat up with termites. The back wall of the house was actually a fence that somebody had set the roof on. So we ended up redoing the floor system and going back with all treated wood, because this is a weird setup. This house actually sits over the water. And they wouldn't let you do that now, with floodplains and all that kind of stuff, and thrown into the aspect of it. But anyway, so this project that probably I think they had in their head, I didn't know, was probably going to be around $200,000 to $250,000. Now we're well over $500,000 and it's going to finish out at about 1,650 square foot for $550,000.
Okay, so that's just an example of the stuff that you can just, oops. I mean,
You just never know.
It's called an estimate for a reason.
Right.
It is an estimate. Okay. So,
And people's minds change on things, rarely in my line of work and the clients I build for, do they like have a plan and stick with it. They change all the time, some people are hell bent on staying in budget, others are not.
The wife saw something on SGTV. She's inspired.
Frickin' Pinterest is a builder's nightmare.
They want this added, and
Which it's all good if you got clients that won't know what they want or want what they want and are willing to pay for what they want.
that's the thing.
The problem you run into is when they want what they want and want me to pay for what they want.
Right, or they're changing after you've already done most of the work for whatever.
And that can get even more expensive. You know, if you make changes that still may run things over budget, as you go is one thing, but after you're finished with something, and then you like a wall, even in the framing process, you get a wall built, and then they say, well, can we move that over 6 inches or a foot or whatever? And it's got to be torn back down and moved. You're adding cost. If you move it in the planning phase, no big deal.
Okay, so that's the high-end budgets. I'm working on the low-end budget, and anybody's dream house, it needs to be realistic as far as
What
Right.
you can afford, and
you can afford. Okay, I can't afford a $5 million mansion. It's not realistic for me. Okay, a young person 20 years old can't afford that. What they can do is decide they're going to be the next Elon Musk and go work for it, and then one day maybe. I mean,
maybe
one day in the future.
probably not, but
The odds of being Elon Musk are slim, or Jeff Bezos, or Mark Zuckerberg. I mean,
Right.
those are 1 in a million, 1 in a billion people. All right, but we can come up with realistic dreams for what we can achieve in the short term now. Okay, so what I'm doing is Stephen's helping me out, and he's going to draw up the plans for my house.
so the plan that Tom and I have thus far is for me to draw up a plan based on what he wants and
I got his advice.
my expertise on what's functional, and then price the entire thing, and then he may do some of the work himself. You know, we had another conversation a little while ago that, you know, I'm not a mechanic. I've got some mechanical abilities, but if I have some major issues with my truck, let's say it needs a new motor, you think I'm gonna take off of work or spend every weekend out there trying to replace the engine in my truck? I'm either gonna junk it and go buy me a new one, or I'm gonna pay my mechanic to do it. And when he gets ready, my mechanic, to build something, he might have some ability to frame and do some of the stuff that goes into construction, but chances are he's gonna do what he is equipped to do and a professional at doing and makes good money at, and pay me to do what I do, and vice versa.
No, I'm that somewhere in between. Okay, I'm going to do what I can on the weekends and on the side and so forth to an extent. But I also know my limitations, and there's some things I'm not going to do. Okay, Steve, and I'm seeking his advice and greatly appreciating it on making what I want to do functional. All right, he knows if your closet's too small, then you just wasted your time even putting the closet there if it's not functional. All right, so
People sometimes put hallways where hallways don't make any sense, or you know, when you, and I'm no architect, now don't get me wrong, but I have a good friend that is, and I've learned a lot from him over the years, and I've started doing my own design work on residential stuff, which building department will accept. But you know, I've seen tons of just horrible designs, horrible layouts, and you've got dead spaces and just stuff that just doesn't make any sense. It's got no rhyme or reason why they did it like that. And somebody that's not a professional in their head may think that that's a great idea. That, you know, I came up with this idea, but in reality, it's not a good layout.
and that's what I would do is not a good layout because I'm not a professional. I don't deal with
And
it.
even my architect buddy, I mean, I'll show him stuff that I design, and he's got different ideas, you know, or I might see something that he's done that I would have done a little different. So that it's a matter of opinion on a lot of things, but you know.
And what we're doing here, okay, Stephen's doing my design for me. And I started to draw the design up myself. I can do that. I can do that.
Well, first off, we're taking an old house, a shotgun house, what I consider it. It's just a
four-room?
box,
Yeah.
4-room box. And back when this house was built, you know, and I have this conversation with people a lot as well. In the last 25 years, engineered lumber has come a long ways. LVLs, you may or may not know what that is. It's a laminated beam, wood beam. You have TGIs, which is a wood eye joist. And you have trusses, open web floor trusses, roof trusses, et cetera, and the list goes on. And an ability to do a bigger, more open floor plan and bigger spans, where back when this little house was built, it was common to see a center wall that was a load-bearing wall that went right down the center of the house.
That was the load-bearing wall everybody always talks about.
And the old 70s ranches and all that kind of stuff. And over the years, we've you can't span 70 foot and open the whole space up, but you can span 24 or something like that, and open a living room and a kitchen up, and just give it more of an open floor plan, which is what most people are going for these days. Nobody is going for the old early 1900s boxy small closets. Back in those days, Tom and I have had the conversation many times that people didn't have a lot of clothes. They didn't need a walk-in closet. Well, what do I need a closet the size of this tiny office if I got two pairs of shoes and a couple of dresses? And this wasn't necessary. Now people have, especially women, have tons of clothes and need somewhere to put it all.
People now want a small bedroom and a big closet.
Exactly. That's a fact.
So that's stuff Stephen's helping me with. But on the budget end, okay, what he's really helping me with is giving me an idea of the price. Because I'm still thinking what stuff cost 30 years ago. Okay, so what I'm going to do is take what Stephen comes up with. Okay, this is your plans, this is how much it costs. To have the right people do it and quickly and done, and a month or two I'm in there and all's happy. Okay, I'm not going to be able to afford that, and I know that now. Okay, the realistic expectations. He's showing me the price of the dream. I'm going to start scaling back from there once he gives me the numbers on the price, just because I know what my budget is versus what my wants right now aren't going to be the same thing.
And generally, you try to start with, give me the layout and the square footage and the functionality that I desire, and maybe you start cutting back on like finishes and stuff,
And that's the thing right there. By him explaining this to me, I can start making adjustments. There's the basic things that I still want to be in this dream house like I wanted at some point in the future. It might not be now, but he can show me, okay, these are the things you need to do right now. You can hold off on this other stuff and save some money and do that later. But you need to get your floor plan right now.
And there's certain things that don't make sense to do later. I mean, I have people that, want a bonus room, which doesn't add a lot of value to a house. But they say, well, I'm going to finish that out later. Well, guess what? You're going to spend more later than you are now. First off, because, let's say you rough it in, you frame it in. But, if you turn around, if you don't do your electrical rough in or drywall and all that, and if you don't finish it out, then later you got to do all those same items in a much smaller scale. And it in turn is going to, when you call a drywall guy out and say, I just want to do this little bonus room right here, and it's 20 sheets of drywall instead of 250 sheets of drywall, well, guess what? Instead of 55 cents a square foot to hang and finish it, you're probably going to pay $1.25 or better.
Or well, you got to get that electrician in there, and also,
and he just got to pull a handful of outlets and lights, and that's going to be a higher price. Everything's going to be a higher price. It's just because it's a small job. If I get called out for some small repair job, well, the price of that versus what you're going to get for a much bigger scale project is going to be a lot higher because it's tiny. It's the time to mobilize and just dealing with a small project in general.
Versus things like molding. I can go back and do molding later myself.
Yeah.
Or cabinetry or finish work. And that's what I'm really good at is woodworking as far as finish work, cabinet making.
Now, if Tom's got the time to stay in the house he's in, or while he works on this, and then he can do, because he does build some cabinets and is a good woodworker, and he could likely do the trim work himself for some stuff like that. I don't know how well he paints. He might want to do the paint work.
I can paint.
But
I don't want to do it,
but at the same time, does he want to spend, instead of making gun videos or videos like this on the weekends, he's gonna be stuck over there with a paintbrush in his damn hand, or a saw and a nail gun or whatever. So you got to weigh out the.
Y'all are gonna get tired real quick of seeing me do this on the side of the
hour after hour.
Hour after hour after hour.
So yeah, you got to kind of pick and choose. Do I want to spend all my time doing that, or would I rather spend a little bit more money? Let's say I'm borrowing some money from the bank or whatever. Maybe I borrow a little more money. I just pay the contractor to get this project knocked out, and I go about my
get back to life.
Whatever I do, whatever I enjoy doing on the weekends, my hobbies or whatever you might have. My hobbies, working 7 days a week generally.
We're in here on a Saturday. Steven's in
I've been in here since about 9 o'clock this morning.
And he's in here just about every Saturday. Usually Sunday.
And Sunday.
The weekends are the time for him to get caught up on paperwork.
Mm-hmm. Do design work, stuff like that.
All right, but that's why he's good at what he does. He does it all the time versus himself, which is why I'm coming to him and he's helping me out and giving me the ideas. And then, like I say, he's giving me this is what I want. All right, he's giving me this is the finished project. This is what it's going to cost. Okay, and then I can take that. Okay, now this is my budget. I want to get as close to that as I can within my budget. Do the stuff that makes sense now, and then I can do what I've got to do later. Because I'm not taking out a loan. I'm doing all of this paying cash and debt free. So, and that goes back to what I said to start with. This is my dream house, and it might not be anybody else's dream. This could very well be a nightmare for somebody else versus a dream.
Yeah.
But we all have to figure out where we're at, what's realistic for us.
Well, and you have to figure out, Tom doesn't want to go in debt, so he's got a small house that his daddy's selling him. When I walked in earlier, Tom's already got these ideas in his head that I can't see. But the house is already gutted. It's 4 rooms.
They've already seen the house.
Okay, and I was like, well, before we, he explained the addition on one side. So we talked for a little bit, and I said, well, we're basically starting with a clean slate for the most part. We're limited to the box that we're dealing with, but we can lay it out however we want to.
And parts of the load-bearing wall, like Stephen pointed out, that
we're going to remove. There's an old chimney in there that's not really. It's not a fireplace. It was just a vent, a chimney for a vent, probably for an old oil burning stove or something. Probably. Yeah. And so, it's not really, you can't really make it into a fireplace, so you may as well just tear it out. If he wants a fireplace, I suggested a masonry fireplace is expensive. If he wants a fireplace, we go with a wood burning insert, and once it's all finished out on the outside, you can't tell the difference. Most people could, I could tell the difference, but the average person, if it's finished out with a thin brick veneer or stone veneer, something like that, in the end, most people can't tell the difference.
Okay, I'm very traditional. I like traditional things, and the average person, that might work for them.
Well, and people don't realize a veneer is even your 3-inch brick that you see on the outside of a house. That's still a veneer. They make a 1/2-inch veneer. The only time it's not a veneer is if it is the structure.
Right.
If you got a triple brick wall that's holding the weight on, then that's not a veneer.
For myself, I would love to build an actual field stone fireplace.
Yeah, get your checkbook out.
The rocks are everywhere. What are you talking about, checkbook?
Get your checkbook out, because that's going to cost lots of money.
No, that would cost you lots of money. It would cost me lots of time.
Well, that too.
Time or money, which one do you want to do?
Yeah. There you have it.
So this is where we're at. This is where we're starting from. Thanks to my friend Stephen. we've got the drawings now. This is where we're going to. And so all we got to do now is figure out how to get from here to here. Now, Stephen gave me a rough estimate of what he thought it's going to cost to get this done, the renovation and so forth. He came up with $150,000. Okay, and that's his specialty. That's what he does, and part of his profession and what he does is getting things done in a timely manner. Okay, now we're fixing to get into my skill set, which is not getting things done in a timely manner. All right, and not being in a rush, and me being able to put in some work here myself, and me having my own skill set with woodworking and so forth. My guess is I'm going to be able to get this done for half the price, at least half. I'm thinking $75,000 on the top end, and that's if I am in a hurry. Might be able to get it done for around $60,000, depending on what kind of decisions I make along the way. Okay, and then we're all in different situations. We all have different dreams. Not everybody can get it done for what I think I can get it done for. And I don't know that I could get it done for that, but over the next few weeks, maybe months, months definitely, we're going to find out. Okay, and then we're going to see exactly what we can turn my dream home into. And I talked before about needing skills and the value of skills and so forth. We're going to get the opportunity to see if my skill set pays off here. God bless and have a great day.